Michelle Deborah Hicks, born on January 27, 1989, went missing from Wharton, Texas on July 12, 2014. She was last seen leaving an address on the 1000 block of West Spanish Camp and was never heard from again. It's believed that she may have been taken against her will. According to the Charlie Project, she's classified as endangered missing. Michelle was 25 years old at the time of her disappearance. She is 5'5", 145 pounds, and was last seen wearing a white flowered dress, black tights, and flip-flops. She has black hair, brown eyes, and tattoos on her neck, right shoulder, and upper right arm. She has a tattoo on the side of her chest and scars on her left cheek and abdomen. Her name may also be spelled in 2 different ways, and she may also use the last name Hector. Beyond this, there do not seem to be many more details to this case. Catherine Collins was born on July 17, 1951 or 1957. Nameless implies 1957, though the Charlie Project implies 1951. She had brown hair, brown eyes, was 5'5" and 125 pounds, and was presumed to have been 23 years old at the time of her disappearance. Catherine had a small scar on her upper lip and 2 scars from a hernia surgery. Potential aliases include Catherine O'Brien and Catherine Troth. Catherine had moved from Blessing, Texas to Lolita about a month before her disappearance. She lived next to the fire station in Lolita, and she had worked in Bay City for a company called Brown and Root, and had quit before her disappearance. She was last seen on the morning of April 1st, 1981 at about 8:45 in the morning, with a flat tire on the causeway leading to Port Lavaca. She drove a brown Capri. Witnesses said that a light or white-colored van appeared to give her some help with changing the tire and was last seen with the driver of the van. Catherine had a 3-year-old son that she had left with her boyfriend's parents in Lolita when she went to travel to Port Lavaca to go to the doctor. The sister of Catherine's boyfriend, Lucy, stated that she wouldn't have left her son and had a lot of money on her since she was going to pay for groceries after the doctor appointment. The last development stated that Catherine's son had been taken into the custody of his maternal grandmother. Charles Wayne Dodd. Charles Dodd was born on May 17, 1911. He was 5'5", 115 pounds, had gray hair and blue eyes. He walked with a limp since one leg was shorter than the other and had an orthoplate in his left leg. He reportedly only had his 2 upper front teeth, and he went by the name Charlie. His middle name was sometimes spelled as Wayne. On August 1st, 1985, Charles went missing in Dallas, Texas, and he was never seen again. Authorities believed that he may have been taken against his will, and there do not seem to be any more details to his story. Charles's family has since considered him deceased, marking his disappearance as his death date. Dorothy Jean Richardson. Dorothy Jean, also known as Dorothy Howard, was born on June 2, 1960, though on the Charlie Project it lists her birthday as June 6th. She went missing from Abilene, Texas on June 30, 1981, and is considered as endangered missing. At the time of her disappearance, she was 21 years old, 5'3", and 115 pounds. She had blonde hair, though naturally it was brown, and she had blue eyes and wore glasses. She may have also used the initials DJ and spell her name as Dorthy. Dorothy was last seen after an argument with her husband and was never heard from again. She did not take her car since it was inoperable and left on foot. Foul play is suspected in her disappearance. Elizabeth Teresa Bishop. Elizabeth Bishop, nicknamed Terry, was born on August 11, 1961, and went missing on October 2nd, 1981. She is considered endangered missing. At the time of her disappearance, she was about 5'6" or 5'7", and weighed anywhere from 110 to 125 pounds. Her last known outfit were blue jeans and either white or beige blouse with multicolored stripes, and she was carrying a large dark brown purse. Elizabeth had brown auburn hair and blue hazel eyes. Terry was last seen talking to some unknown men around Diamond Jim's, which is a nightclub on Butternut Street in Abilene, Texas. She was never heard from again. The authorities suspected Henry Lee Lucas, a potential suspect, and though he was interviewed over 10 times, he constantly denied any involvement. Lucas had been previously convicted of the 1979 murder of an unidentified Texas female and sentenced to death. George H.W. Bush, who was governor at the time, commuted Lucas's sentence to life in prison before his scheduled execution in 1999. Lucas later died in prison, but claimed to have killed about 600 people, yet was also known for confessing to crimes that he did not commit. He is also suspected for having killed Eva DeBrule and Cheryl Shearer. Interestingly, Elizabeth Bishop went missing just months after Dorothy Jean did, both from the same town. Tamara Ellen McCurry. Tamara McCurry was born on February 17, 1960. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5'6", 125 pounds, and 22 years old. She went missing from Galveston, Texas on July 1, 1982, after last being seen getting into an orange or yellow van. There's a possibility that she may have been 3 months pregnant. Tamara had a scar near her left eyebrow and went by the nickname Tammy. She may have been using the last name Norris or a different name of Jessica Simmons. Her name is also listed as Tamara sometimes. Wayne Moore, also known as Buddy, was born on August 4, 1942. At the time of his disappearance, he was 49 years old. He was 5'9", 140 pounds, had brown hair and green eyes. Wayne had a scar on the left side of his chest and a pacemaker. Wayne disappeared from Pasadena, Texas. He was last seen at his home in a silver 1984 Datsun pickup truck with the license plates of 9069 EV. 4 days after he disappeared, his truck was found burned and abandoned. Richard K. Roberts. Richard, also known as Skinny, went missing on July 13, 1992, from Teague, Texas. He was born on June 8, 1917. At the time, he was 75 years old. Skinny was last seen wearing a red and blue flannel shirt, a white t-shirt, gray pants, gray shoes, and a white hat that said Teague Lions in orange letters. He walked away from the Teague nursing home that he was a patient of. Richard is considered disabled and had an artificial leg below his left knee. He is considered to be endangered missing. Roger Udo Reinhard. Roger Reinhard was born on November 17, 1962. He was 6'1", 215 pounds, with brown hair and green eyes. Roger had gotten married on August 25, 1984 in Bexar County to an Edith F. Roberts. On August 25, 1986, his second-year anniversary, Roger was last seen in San Antonio, reportedly planning to travel to Dallas. Roger was never heard from again, though interestingly, there seems to be a public record of an address in San Antonio in 1998, though this does not lead to anything. In an obituary for what I presume to be his father, Max Edwin Reinhard, Roger is listed as living in 1992. David Harold Dilloway. David Dilloway was born on October 21, 1976. He disappeared on April 28, 2001, from Austin, Texas. He was 24 at the time and about 185 to 195 pounds. David was 6'1", with long brown hair, blue eyes. He also went by the name of Dave. He had a scar across the right cheek and a burn scar of a cross on his left arm. Dave was last seen wearing a Metallica shirt and combat boots. Around the time of his disappearance, David was suffering from depression. He was supposed to have met with his family for the weekend, and yet he never showed up. He was never heard from again. David left behind his dog, clothes, guitar, and important papers at his apartment. Jason Augustus Hill. Jason Hill was born on June 19, 1975. He went missing on October 24, 1994 in Austin, Texas. He was 19 years old at the time and 170 pounds. Jason was 5'11", with brown hair and brown eyes. He had a tattoo of Medusa on his right shoulder. On the day that he went missing, Jason had gotten a call from a convenience store payphone and was overheard arguing with someone. Afterwards, he had told a friend that he needed to leave Austin immediately. Jason was last seen later that night being dropped off by his friend at the Robert Mueller Municipal Airport, which is now essentially the Austin Bergstrom Airport. His friend dropped him off at the front entrance, but it is unknown if he ever boarded a plane, and foul play is suspected. Sharon Zelinksy McCully. Sharon McCully was born on July 1, 1959. She went missing on December 11, 1984, in Austin, Texas. At the time of her disappearance, she was 25 years old and weighed anywhere between 130 and 140 pounds. Sharon was 5'6", with brown hair and brown eyes. She also went by the nickname Sarah and had a tattoo of a yellow and red rose on her abdomen. Sharon was last seen at Howard Lane in I-35. She went on a Christmas shopping trip, having just left a lunch date with her husband, having dropped him off at work. Sharon drove an off-white 1965 Beetle with a faded orange hood and a missing front bumper. Sharon's Volkswagen was seen on Bee Cave Road that day and in the area where Barton Creek Square is now located, though this has not been confirmed. Her car was eventually found at an apartment complex on the 8600 block of Research Boulevard. Sharon's family don't think that she knew anyone at the apartment complex and don't know why she would have been there. The car wasn't having any problems since her husband, who was a mechanic, had just tuned the engine. It is important to point out, though, that the latch to the hood was broke, and they used a white rope to keep it closed. When the car was found, this rope was missing. Also missing was Sharon's purse, which had $170 in cash, which is the equivalent of $425 in 2020. There aren't any implications of foul play. A witness told police that they saw a woman fitting Sharon's description getting out of the car with a man, but the tip led to nowhere. Fingerprints were on her car, but there wasn't enough evidence to link anyone to the crime. It is believed that she was taken against her will. Lorraine Meagle Light. Lorraine Light was born on July 23, 1968. She went missing on November 23, 1989 from Spring, Texas. She was 5'3", 105 pounds, with blonde hair and hazel eyes. Lorraine also had a discoloration on her left leg. Lorraine was last seen having been dropped off by her mother-in-law or friends in the parking lot of her apartment around 2 a.m. She had gone to buy groceries earlier in the day to make Thanksgiving dinner for her 3-year-old daughter. After grocery shopping, she went out with her friends. It's unknown where her daughter was at this time. Lorraine shared an apartment with her sister, Cynthia Meagle. When Cynthia came home at 3 a.m., there were grocery bags on the floor and a turkey defrosting in the sink, but no sign of Lorraine. On the answering machine was a message with a caller that claimed to be Lorraine and that she met with someone with who she was going to Mexico with for a few days. Cynthia doesn't believe that the caller was actually her sister. The voice didn't sound like her, and the caller called Cynthia Cindy, which was a nickname that she never used. Cynthia doesn't believe that Lorraine would have suddenly left, especially at Thanksgiving. Lorraine was reported missing by Cynthia after she had missed the family dinner. 6 years after her disappearance, Lorraine's boyfriend's father allegedly made some admissions about her at a nightclub. He stated that no one would ever find her. 2 witnesses reported what they heard to Cynthia, who told the police, but no action was taken. The police report of it has since been lost, along with most of Lorraine's missing persons file. Foul play is suspected, but no arrests have been made. David Allen Dunaway. David Dunaway, also known as Pud, was born on June 3, 1951. He was 29 years old at the time of his disappearance on May 10, 1981. David went missing in Houston, Texas. He was 6 feet tall, 150 pounds, with brown hair and hazel eyes. His teeth were reported to have been in poor condition, and he had metal dental plates. David worked as a drywall contractor. At some point, he had a prior arrest in Humble, Texas. He was allegedly paranoid, on drugs, and was carrying a sawed-off shotgun in a brown paper bag. He left behind a wife and 2 sons. The family had been unsuccessful in filing missing persons report. In the past, each being canceled every time. There is a Find a Grave page for David, with his death date listed as the day that he went missing. David's death has never been confirmed, but a rumor says that he was later hung in the woods. In 1979, David's brother was killed by a drunk driver. In his paranoid state of mind, David believed that someone was trying to kill him, and the ones trying to do so were the same ones that killed his brother. David's mother, Hazel, has DNA available on Ancestry, GEDmatch, and FT-DNA. Gary Wayne Dover. Gary Dover was born on January 10, 1950. He went missing from Denton, Texas on August 29, 1981. He was 5'10", 140 pounds, with dark brown hair and blue eyes. Gary had a scar on his chin and right forearm. Below his right knee was a bullet wound, with the bullet never having been removed. He was supposed to wear prescription glasses, but never wore them. Gary was known to usually wear Nakona cowboy boots. He was last seen on August 29th, and his vehicle was found a couple of days later in a grocery store parking lot with the keys inside. Jose A. Elizondo. Jose Elizondo was born on November 21, 1958. At the time he went missing, he was 25 years old, having disappeared on May 13, 1984, in Hereford, Texas. It's said that Jose was last with his friend Tommy Valdez, driving a white Ford Pinto station wagon. Foul play is suspected. Jose is listed as having been 5'9" to 5'11" and 140 to 150 pounds. David Glen Bratton. David Glen Bratton was born on October 27, 1960. He was 25 at the time of his disappearance in Greenville, Texas. David was last seen on July 24, 1986. His car, a cream-colored 1977 Chevy Nova, was found abandoned in Delta County, Texas, the next county over. David may have suffered from depression. He was 6 feet tall, 130 pounds, with red hair and green eyes. James Leon Throneberry. James Throneberry was born on October 13th, 1967. He was between 5'5" and 5'6" and about 110 pounds. James went missing on February 12, 1990 from Seguin, Texas. He was last seen wearing a gray work shirt with either a patch of the Placid or Placid Metal emblem on the left side. He had on jeans, brown suede Roper-style work boots or sneakers on. James lived in the 200 block of Bluff Creek. At 1615, he left his workplace where he was a welder at a metal craft shop. Allegedly, James spent time with a co-worker that day. He was last seen filling his car at an ice house at the intersection of Highway 90 and Court Street around 1630. The next day, James's wallet was found at the intersection of FM 78 and FM 725 near McQueenie. His 1983 Subaru was found in the parking lot of a grocery store in Seguin. The car was locked and out of gas, despite him having filled up the tank the day before. There was no cash inside, and his driver's license was missing. The license soon turned up a short distance away. Many sources state his last name as Throneberry, but for some reason the Doe network lists it as Thornberry. Clinton Heines. Clinton Heines was born on October 14th, 1958. At the time of his disappearance, he was 31 years old, 6'3" and 175 pounds. Clinton had blonde hair and hazel eyes, and he spoke with a speech impediment. On January 18th, 1990, Clinton went missing from Tyler, Texas. It's believed that he may have traveled to Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Texarkana, Texas. Beyond this, there do not seem to be any more details. Billy Wellman. Billy Wellman was born on June 8, 1921. He went missing on May 13, 1991 in Crockett, Texas. He was last seen at a bus station en route to California, of where he was going to visit at the time. He was never heard from again, and it is unknown if he ever even arrived in California. Billy was listed as 5'7" and 185 pounds. He is classified as disabled and had gray hair and blue eyes. Billy had a large scar on his forehead and a tattoo on his left shoulder of a fist with the middle finger raised, and he also wore dentures. Gary Curtis Williams. Gary Williams was born on May 9, 1963. His nickname was Gee Whiz. At the time of his disappearance, he was 26 years old. He is listed as having been 5'7" and 150 pounds. He had black hair and brown eyes, a scar on his left cheek, and a teardrop tattoo below his left eye. Gary went missing on May 13, 1989 in Ennis, Texas. He was never heard from again beyond that day, and Gary's family believes that his lifestyle may have had something to do with it. It is unknown what exactly his lifestyle was like, but foul play is suspected in his disappearance. Barry Todd Jennings. Barry Jennings was born on July 31, 1961. He was 5'9" and 180 pounds. He had brown hair and brown eyes. Barry had numerous scars on his body and fractures in both femurs that never healed correctly that resulted in a limp. Barry was diagnosed as schizophrenic. He was last seen in Bryan, Texas on August 1, 1992. He may have been headed to Brownsville, Texas by bus. Albert Wade. Albert Wade was born on April 14th, 1901. At the time of his disappearance, he was 85 years old. Albert was listed as having been 5'6" and 140 pounds. He had black hair and brown eyes and was last seen wearing a worn long-sleeved gray shirt, gray pants, brown loafers, and an older black hat. He was also seen carrying an older brown suitcase. On June 27, 1986, Albert went missing from Sugar Land, Texas. He may not have known his name or his address, and Albert was classified as disabled. Joseph Wayne Daggett. Joseph Daggett, also known as Joe, was born on September 18, 1960. He is listed as having been 5'10" and 185 pounds. Joseph had green eyes, red hair, and freckles. He had a full beard and mustache at the time of his disappearance. Joseph was last seen wearing a black felt cowboy hat, a white long-sleeved western shirt with gray pinstripes, brown cowboy boots, and wheat-colored Wrangler jeans. He may have been wearing a gold box square link necklace, a gold Seiko watch with a white face, a gold Uvalde Jr. College 1981 graduation ring, a gold horseshoe ring with 11 diamonds, a solid brass custom belt buckle, and was wearing a Morgan silver dollar money clip. Joe was last seen on March 1st, 1988 in Fort Stockton, Texas. Another source states that he was last seen in Pecos, Texas. These towns are an hour away from each other. He was last seen between 22:30 to 2300 when he left a friend's house or his girlfriend's, heading home for his ranch house or his grandmother's house. Joseph's pickup truck was found at Midland International Airport, still loaded with feed. The location is about an hour and a half away from where he was last seen in Fort Stockton. Foul play is possible. During the first few months after he disappeared, there were horseback riders that searched several locations for his body. In 2008, authorities searched for Joe's body again, but found nothing useful. In 2009, police arrested a Light C. Nathan Saul in New Mexico and charged him with conspiracy to commit capital murder in Daggett's case. Two other suspects, George McIntyre and Robert Easel, were later indicted on the same charges. It's believed that Saul asked an acquaintance to murder Joseph Daggett because Joe was allegedly having an affair with Saul's wife. In 2011, Saul was found guilty and sentenced to 60 years in prison, with the charges against McIntyre and Easel still pending. No one has been charged with the actual causation of Joseph's death. In 2010, George McIntyre was charged with aggravated sexual assault of a child and had a bail of $300,000. Joseph is considered deceased, at least by his family, with a burial site in East Hills Cemetery, Fort Stockton, Texas. Norman Lamar Prater. Norman was born on June 6, 1956. He was white, 5'8", 130 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. His earlobes were attached. On January 14, 1973, Norman left his house in Dallas, Texas, stating that he would be back in a short while to help his mother move the next day. He never returned. According to his bio on the Charlie Project, he went to an all-night coffee shop where his mother worked and had a soft drink. He was accompanied by two teen boys with shoulder-length hair that his mother didn't know, and an older Hispanic man that she knew by sight. Authorities believe that Norman may have been the victim of a serial killer named Dean Corll. Corll was nicknamed the Candy Man and the Pied Piper because he and his family had owned a candy factory and gave away free candy to the local children. Coral had two teenage accomplices named David Brooks and Elmer Wayne Henley. The teens partook in the sexual assault, torture, and murders of at least 28 young men and teens in Texas from 1970 to 1973. Coincidentally, Norman went to Jackson Junior High School in Houston, which Henley had also gone to. From 1970 to 1971, Norman lived with his father in a neighborhood where many of the victims of Dean Coral came from. When Norman went to live with his mother in Dallas, he continued to visit Houston regularly on the weekends. It hasn't been proven that Norman was a victim of Coral's, but there's the possibility that Coral may have had more victims. It should be noted, though, that Coral was white. In 2021, Norman would be 64, going on 65 years old. There have been 66 unidentified people compared to his case. All have been excluded. Danny Lee Jones. Danny was born on January 26, 1959. He was a white male that was 5'5" and 150 pounds. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. Danny had a scar on his right arm from a near amputation. At the age of 15, on September 1st, 1974, Danny went missing from Gilmer, Texas. Authorities believe that he left on his own accord. There have been 54 Doe comparisons to his case, all of which have been excluded. As of 2021, Danny would be 61 years old. Robert Douglas Sparks. Robert, also known as Bob, was born on either January 20th or January 22nd, 1927. He was white with brown hair and brown eyes. He was 5'10" and 168 pounds, with a large scar on his right leg. At the time that he went missing, he was 46 years old. Bob was a retired Air Force officer and private pilot. At the time that he went missing, he was wearing slacks, a short-sleeved shirt, and a tan sweater. On November 19th, 1972, he was hired by a man named Lonnie D. Shaw. This man went by the name Lon, and he wanted Bob to fly him around the lower Rio Grande Valley for 2 hours to take pictures. Robert rented a 1970 Piper Cherokee 235 that is described as wine and white gold. Robert and Lonnie Shaw departed McAllen, Texas, with Shaw's 2 small pieces of luggage and a camera. At 1:50 p.m., Robert advised over the radio that he was en route to Tampico, Mexico, canceling the original flight plan. A few minutes later, he sent the message again, knowing that he didn't have the right paperwork to fly into Mexico at the time. Investigators believed that Robert was under duress at this time. The plane had enough fuel for a 500-mile trip. Lonnie D. Shaw had been in and out of mental institutions. He was born around 1934, was 6'1" and 160 pounds. He is described as having had a slim build with gray or graying hair. I am unsure what family Lonnie may have had, but neither were ever seen or heard from again. Robert Shaw left behind a wife and 4 children. The ID number for the plane was N8529N, that the FAA deregistered in 1988. Neither Lonnie Shaw or Robert Sparks are listed on NamUs. Personally, I believe that Robert must have been set up by Lonnie to take him to Mexico, Lonnie potentially fleeing the country for some reason. It's possible that Lonnie may have had a gun and forced Robert to fly into Mexico. I imagine that the two may have gotten into a fight and crashed somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico. This is my own personal theory, though. David Wayne Wagner. David was born on November 11th, 1947. He is listed to have served in the Marines at some point. He was a white male with black, dark brown hair with brown eyes. He was 5'9" or 5'10", and 160 to 170 pounds. David had small vertical scars on his cheeks and a horizontal scar on his chin. He had previously had 2 small fractures and a broken collarbone from a motorcycle accident. David is listed as hard of hearing in his left ear. At the time of his disappearance, he wore dark-rimmed glasses and was usually known to have worn dress shirts and slacks or blue jeans. He was also known to wear a watch. David went missing at the age of 23 on October 9, 1971, from Pasadena, Texas. He was last seen at his home, which was around the 2700 block of Lafferty. His car was found parked in front of his apartment with the keys in the ignition. There were clothes, a suitcase, and a small amount of money left inside the house. 2 weeks later, a hunter located David's red Honda 350 motorcycle with the helmet sitting on top in the woods off of Highway 59 in Cold Springs, Texas. This area is about 70 miles north of Houston. Allegedly, David only took his wallet and 9mm pistol. His family believed that he may have had a run-in with James C. Parker, also known as Humpy, who was sheriff of San Jacinto County, Texas, which is just north of Harris County. James Parker and 2 of his deputies went to prison for detaining and torturing young men that they met on 59 in the 70s and 80s. They liked to target hippies, black men, motorcyclists, and men with bumper stickers advertising rock stations. He has not been linked to David's case and died in federal prison in 1999. At the time of his disappearance, David was unemployed, having quit his last job because it bored him. His family do not think that he would have left without warning, and David wasn't depressed or suicidal in 1971. Even though his parents are now deceased, David's sister is still searching for him and believe that he may have been taken against his will. There have been 70 does compared to his case, all of which have been excluded. His sister has a Facebook page dedicated to the search of him. I personally decided to take a look at some unidentified people that were found in the Harris, San Jacinto, and Fort Bend County areas. There are many more John Does in the Houston area, all before 1985 alone, but 2 from San Jacinto County really caught my eye. First is the male found on December 7th, 1979. He is listed as less than 50 years old and anywhere from 30 to 45. He is estimated to have been 5'6", but his race is uncertain. The estimated year of date is virtually unknown, listed as 0 to 1979, which was the year he was found. There are many things unknown about this John Doe, who is only skeletal remains by the time he was found. John was discovered by hunters in the woods. There haven't been any exclusions to his case, and the only image of his items are the shoes found that are listed on the autopsy report. They are stated to have been green, but they appear to be brown in the photo. John had 2 pairs of pants, one green and one blue with stripes. He also had a short green sleeve shirt. The second man in San Jacinto County was found on December 11th, 1983. There aren't any exclusions to his case, and he is listed as having been anywhere from 20 to 40 years old. He was white, and his height, weight, and time of death are uncertain. John Doe is listed as potentially dying anywhere from 0 to 1983, potentially dead for 1 year. John was also found in a wooded area in a hunting area. His remains were unrecognizable, with limbs missing. It is unknown what his hair or eye color were, and there aren't any accessories that were found with his body. Floradean Walker, maiden name Hawes, was born somewhere around 1926, give or take a year or so. She was 5'7", 135 pounds, with red auburn hair and green eyes. She is listed as white, left-handed, and went by the name Pat. Pat was one of 7 children and from Missouri. In March of 1950, she married a man named Wesley E. Walker in Hicks. Floradean went missing in 1951 from Hicks, Texas, though the exact date of last contact is unknown. According to NamUs, she was likely last contacted around spring or fall of what I assume to have been 1950. There have been 21 exclusions to her case, but beyond this, there is very little information. Charles Austin, also known as Champ, was born on June 25, 1939. He was last seen in Daingerfield, Texas, on July 23, 1998. He is listed as having been 5'11", 165 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Champ wore glasses and 2 gold nugget rings on his left hand. He had asthma, a speech impediment, and was blind in his left eye. Charles is listed to potentially have memory loss. He was last seen wearing a navy blue baseball hat, a white long-sleeve shirt with gray and blue stripes, light yellow pants, and black shoes. His case is categorized as endangered. There is very little information about his entire case, though the most I can tell you is that there have been 4 exclusions to his profile on NamUs. Damon Paul Billiot. Damon Billiot was born on June 5, 1964. He was last seen in Tyler, Texas on March 15, 1996 at the 2300 block of Pleasant Drive. He is listed as 5'8", 175 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. He may have been wearing athletic shoes, a button-up shirt, and jeans. Damon and his family had moved to Tyler only 6 months before he went missing. Foul play is believed to be involved. Ever since he went missing, there hasn't been any activity with his driver's license or social security number. Authorities state that because the case is still under investigation, they will not discuss the details. Damon's parents stated that, "For years we never left this house together. One of us stayed here hoping a phone call would come. When you're driving down the road, you keep looking at all the hitchhikers, or you think, maybe he's on the road walking. You pass somebody and you say, well, maybe that's him, and you take a double take. I guess not knowing, there's still hope." There have been 20 exclusions to his case. Austin J. Childs. Austin Childs was born on July 27, 1987, and he would go by his initials AJC. He was last seen on April 9, 2005, in the Freeport area of Texas. He was last seen leaving on a fishing trip with John Zimmerman and Scott Keller. Their boat was found capsized in the Gulf of Mexico with a hole in the bottom, potentially run into something like a log. Austin is listed as having been 5'9", 170 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. He had a scar on his right shoulder and was last seen wearing a brown leather jacket, blue jeans, flip-flops, and a white shell choker necklace. The trio took a Labrador Retriever, several 160-quart ice chests with snap-on cushions, an orange life ring, a blue and red raft, and 3 to 6 standardized orange life jackets. When the boat was found, a seat cushion and 3 life jackets were floating nearby. No sign of the men at the scene. Despite an extensive search, no one, including the Labrador, was found. Zimmerman and Keller were family friends of the Childs family that had taken Austin fishing multiple times. Austin was known as an avid outdoorsman. He attended the J. Frank Dobie High School and was a member of the FFA. He fished ever since he was a boy and had asked his parents to buy him a fishing boat for his graduation, though this didn't happen. He had plans to buy his own boat one day. Austin was known for fishing at least once a month, and if he wasn't on a friend's boat, he would be seen fishing from the piers in Galveston. In the years since, there has been a Find a Grave page and an obituary page made for Austin. Interestingly, his Find a Grave page states that, while his body was lost at sea, the Coast Guard did eventually find him. I'm unsure of how true this is, though. A scholarship has been made in the memory of Austin for kids that are part of the FFA program at Frank Dobie High School. Rogelio Rilme Cerda. Rogelio Cerda was born on Christmas Eve, 1959. He is listed as having been 5'9", 160 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. His race is listed as having been white Hispanic. Rogelio had a scar on the bridge of his nose and birthmark on his left ankle. He had recently completed his freshman year at Central Catholic High School and had a full-time job at Amigos Food Co. and was learning how to drive. On June 29, 1975, Rogelio was last seen swimming at Matagorda Beach in Matagorda, Texas, though he is listed as missing from Bay City. This may be because Bay City is the county seat of Matagorda County and is the closest big city next to the beach town. Though he was from San Antonio, Rogelio went on a fishing trip with several other people originally destined for Corpus Christi. Rogelio went with his girlfriend, Betty Jean Witherspoon, his girlfriend's friend, Anna Marie Ayala, Ayala's parents, her uncle, her boyfriend Nick Diaz, and Diaz's sister. For some reason, the group changed their mind about going to Corpus and instead headed to Bay City instead. Rogelio didn't tell his parents about the change in plans, which is described as uncharacteristic behavior. Rogelio's girlfriend Betty Jean and her friend Anna stated that they went swimming with Rogelio at Matagorda Beach when they were all swept up 300 yards offshore in an undertow. Betty and Anna were rescued, but Rogelio was not found. It's believed that he drowned after being swept out to sea. Rogelio's family do not believe this, though, stating he was a good swimmer and that he may have just run away or suffered an attack of amnesia, with the possibility of him still being alive. According to Rogelio's sister, their father had a drinking problem and poor relationship with Rogelio, which may have been the reason that he ran away. A year and a half after Rogelio went missing, his father took his own life. Rogelio's sister stated that he was seen in the local area after the disappearance by those that knew him. His family got strange calls on multiple occasions where there was music at the end of the line, and on other occasions it sounded like someone was trying to talk. His mother and sister believed that the calls were from him. Rogelio's sister had a blog dedicated to him, in which posts reported seemed more like to be talking to him. Those that were able to see the blog stated that his sister believed the amnesia theory. As of 2021, the blog is invite only. In a thread about Serda on Web Sleuths, someone that was able to read the posts pointed out that Rogelio's sister seemed to hold a grudge against his girlfriend's family. For some reason, she seemed to believe that Betty Jean's family and the others involved were covering up what happened that day. There have been 44 exclusions to his case on NamUs, and he is listed as endangered. Doing a quick search on NamUs, I saw 2 John Does that seemed similar to Rogelio's case. I looked for does that were found along the coastal counties of Texas, coming across one from Brazoria County and the other from Matagorda County. The first John Doe was found on November 1st, 1978. His body was found on Surfside Beach, Brazoria County, which is not far from Matagorda Beach. His head, torso, and various other limbs were not recovered. His hair color, eye color, and even race are uncertain, as the remains were so decomposed. His estimated age is anywhere from 18 to 99 years old, and there have not been any exclusions to his case. The second John Doe was found on June 5th, 1979 in Matagorda County. John is estimated to have been anywhere from 25 to 40 years old and 5'6". His hair color, eye color, race, and weight were not able to be determined. John was found at the beach with all parts recovered, though it was skeletal remains only. There haven't been any exclusions to his case. Ronald Allen Douglas. Ronald Douglas was born on December 12, 1943. He is listed as having been 5'6", 175 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. Ronald had an enlarged head and was blind in his left eye. He suffered from polio and other disabling diseases. Ronald relied on canes for mobility and sometimes used a wheelchair. He had short, stubby feet, scars on both ankles, and many moles on his back and rear. He was known to have traveled with the evangelistic group, the Whitey Gleason Trio. Though he was last seen on March 1st, 1983, he last contacted his mother by letter on February 17th, 1985. He was traveling the Midwest in 1985 with the Whitey Gleason Trio, where they would sing at revival meetings and give testimonials to their faith. He stayed with Gleason and his wife at the Springfield Motel when he and all of his belongings disappeared, when the Gleasons went to the store. Supposedly, Ronald left a note behind saying, "Thanks for taking care of me. I'll keep in touch," of which he was never heard from again. Despite this, there was no evidence of foul play. Ronald was on Social Security benefits that had not been touched since his disappearance. Ronald's mother hired a private investigator and cooperated with authorities from Missouri, Texas, and Kansas. His mother lived in Kansas in 1983. He is listed as endangered missing, and there have been 25 exclusions to his case. Ronald Ray Childress. Ronald Childress, also known as Clay, was born on February 7th, 1967. He is listed as having been 5'6", 120 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Childress is listed as black. Ronald had a tattoo on his upper left arm, a colostomy incision that had not been closed, and scarring in his lower left quadrant of the abdomen due to a gunshot wound. On September 22nd, 1991, he went missing from Hankamer, Texas. He was last seen wearing a white t-shirt, blue jeans, blue-white tennis shoes, and a blue baseball hat. There is very little known about his case other than foul play is suspected. His case is listed as endangered missing, and there have been 0 exclusions to his case on NamUs. Interestingly, despite a profile being made for him on the website in 2013, it wasn't made visible to the public until 2019.